Open form, a break from tradition. As its name suggests, open form takes a more individualistic approach. It aims not to follow the rigid rules of traditional poetry, but to break free from the norm and express the free and fresh side of an author. As a result, the poet needs to engage with the reader and maintain their attention by other means, aside from rhyme scheme or basic meter. Open form poetry does, however, take skill to compose, as it needs to be understood and engaging to a wider audience. Our name, free verse, captures this connotation of being liberated from the rules of poetry, and this can reflect upon a modern society such as ours that lean farther and farther away from the norm, evident in fashion, architecture, and social norms, all evolving just as open form is adept to the same. Some poets believe that free verse is too broad a name and doesn't accurately portray the essence of open form. Alternatives to open form include organic poetry, composition by field, and raw poetry. This suggests that although yes, open form does rely heavily on the lack of structure and principles, there is still influence and a sort of quasi-structure ever present that guides and shapes what we know as open form. Things you can find in open form, or certain aspects, include projective verse, which is a theory proposed by Charles Olson. Composition is based on the poet's own breathing. It can be shown through varying white space, varying indentations, grouping of words, or with line breaks. Another form is psalms, which are sacred songs or a form of religious poetry which tell of religious experiences. It can be found in religious texts like the Torah and the Bible. E. Cummings' Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bill's defunct, who used to ride a water smooth silver stallion and break 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pigeons just like that. Jesus, he was a handsome man. And what I want to know is, how do you like your blue-eyed boy, Mr. Death? Without the line breaks, grouping, or white space, E. Cummings' poem would no longer maintain its individuality. It would look like any other poem. With the methods used, the reader becomes more engaged. Instead of reading a regular paragraph, the reader is guided by how the poet wrote the poem itself, using the breath technique of projective verse. Prose poetry. Prose poems do not care for the visual appeal that a poem may have, nor does it care to hold on to the rhythm that may be found in line poetry. Thus, prose is typically written in a block paragraph style, where the typical image of a poem is not evident. This reflects upon there being no law that binds a poet to split their ideas into lines or verses, allowing them to write and write. Prose poetry can be found similar to a stream of consciousness, as it looks like word vomit rather than an elegantly structured poem. This slide, for instance, resembles prose poetry, as it's just a block of words. Another form is visual poetry. In conjunction with the literary art form of poetry, visual poetry, as its name suggests, is a visual art form as well. A poem's structure can add meaning and nuance that sometimes the words just can't, or the structure helps to accentuate the nuance already present. These visual cues help the reader to explore beyond the words and think outside the box for a deeper meaning. The takeaway is that open form is not just a poetic form, it's a symbol for a break from tradition. It allows the poet to express themselves as an artist, not just an author. With different facets coming together to create open form, the style of poetry reflects our contemporary and evolving society. Just as the arts themselves allow for great deals of freedom of expression, so does open form and its capacity to change. And that was open form. Thank you.